Hey, what's up? It's Samori. This is for those who hunger for more, so much more, so much more. Regin, get all the refugees in sync, inspired. What's up, y'all? It's Samori. Welcome back to the podcast, and today I'm excited. That's all I can say. I am super excited. Obviously, every episode we bring you a creativepreneur, right? A creative entrepreneur who is following their dreams, following their passions, and doing it for a living. Today, we have one of the queens of Philadelphia. This sister right here is an entrepreneur. She's a writer. She's an educator. She's a strategist. She's a fashion icon. She's international. Without further ado, I want to give you a warm welcome to the Queen, Jeannine Cook. Yes, how are you, Queen?
That was a beautiful introduction.
Well deserved. Well deserved. It is such an honor to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in the building. Yeah.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And, I would say this is a long time in the making because in my head it has been. But obviously recently we had a chance to connect and I was like, man, I've got to have this queen on this show.
Yeah.
So again, welcome. And we're going to have a great conversation. Obviously, I want to know about all your entrepreneurial endeavors.
Sure.
But I want to start out and get to know you.
Okay.
Jeannine Cook. Can you just tell me about where you're from, your upbringing, and what has kind of led you to this point of just greatness?
It's so funny. I'll answer your question. First of all, I'm led by spirit for sure because we were walking down the street. I was just like, oh, you know where we got to go? Right here. We're going in the studio right now. You're right here in the studio, hanging, making sure. Gave us a beautiful tour. And even today, like I was saying to you earlier, I'm sitting in Starbucks right down the street, just sitting there minding my business. And I asked this guy if he was a writer. He was like, yeah, I am. And then he says to me, have you ever met someone named Samori Coles? And I was like, what? I'm about to go meet with him like this second. Like, what? And so I take those as signs and as confirmation that we're walking on the right path and that what it's supposed to be is right now. And so I appreciate the invite. And in terms of my childhood, I was born in Brooklyn. My mother is from Trinidad. My father's from Brooklyn. They met there and they quickly after we were born, they moved us to Hampton, Virginia. So that's where I was raised. Then I came to Philly when I was 17.
Okay. And you say us, so you have siblings.
Yeah, I have an older sister, younger sister. I'm in the middle. I'm the diplomat. Yeah.
All right. How long were you down in Hampton?
I came to Philly when I was 17. So most of my life, probably 12 years, all my schooling was in Hampton, Virginia.
Okay. All right. And I know you are a writer. I know you are an educator. So was the writing kind of your first love artistically?
Yeah, writing is who I am at the root. It's how I deal with emotion. It's how I create. It's how I vision the future. It's like a guy once told me when I was much younger, he was like, get a composition book and just write the future. Like pretend you're writing like what the future will be and write it in first person, which is like, and then this is happening and now this is happening. And it's just a gift that he gave me, but it's amazing to go back and look at your old stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm living this version of the story that I decided I was going to tell of who I am.
How about that manifestation?
Oh yeah, it's serious.
The law of attraction.
Serious.
It's interesting. So here at Little Drummer Boy, we teach audio engineering and music production and music business.
Right.
And one of the first assignments that we give our students, and I think it's the most important, is something called the Values and Visions essay. And that essay is exactly like you described. We have them write an essay from the perspective of a person who is going to be giving them a Lifetime Achievement Award in the next decade. And they have to write, what is that person going to say about you? And you're right, because I've seen some amazing things happen from this.
Oh, absolutely.
Writing down, because words are spelled.
Exactly. And I think once you recognize that and you agree, right? Because it is an agreement between yourself and yourself that this is how I'm going to create. I'm going to use words I'm going to use the written word. Some people use the auditory. Some people use paint, whatever it is that you use, whatever your medium is, just making sure that I agree that I trust this medium. I trust that I'm going to be a medium for the medium, if that makes any sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. So when you started writing early on, what were you writing?
When I was a little girl, I used to write about these twins and they would switch places and they would they were like these tricky twins that were doing like little things like that. I used to write a lot of letters. I used to write letters to God.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of things I didn't understand. I had to things were off in our childhood. My mother went blind. I was probably about 9 or 10. My mother lost her vision completely.
Really?
And it's a funny thing in that, this blindness runs in our family, generation after generation. And I say, the people with the least amount of vision tend to have the most amount of vision in a way. And my mother is definitely that kind of woman, because even though she was blind, she was still traveling and she still was taking care. She was just about her business. She was the entrepreneur. So it was like, that's just who she is. And then her and my father had this conflictual relationship. They loved each other so much, but they were always fighting, and so writing became another way to just get out, to leave that space and be in my own world. And Toni Morrison says something that I think is really interesting. She talks about playing God, and that by being storytellers, we get a chance to feel what God feels like. To create characters and to create worlds and to create, story structure and to make decisions about what will happen with these characters. And I think, that's what writing did for me when I was a little girl. It gave me opportunity to see what that was like, to have control in some ways.
Right.
To understand what God might feel like.
Right. So I would imagine, since you have such a love for writing, you also have a love for reading.
I do, yeah. I think that the love for reading, again, goes back to my mother and her vision issues. Because even though she went completely blind when I was about 9 or 10, she was slowly losing her vision for years before that. And one of the things that she would do with me is she would have me read to her.
Right.
And so it just became like a special thing for us. And then as she lost her vision even more, my mom was in school. I told you, she just doesn't stop. She's just one of those people. So when they're like, oh, Jeannine, you got that tenacity, I'm like, nothing like her, though. She can go. Right. But she was losing her vision. She was in school getting her master's degree. And what she did was she told us, okay, you all from now on are going to read to me and you're going to write for me. And so it would just became a thing. Like, you wouldn't even know, because when you're a child, you don't know. You just do what your parents say you do. Sit at the computer, you're going to type what I say, Right. And so you just sit there and she's telling you what to type. And yeah, that's how she got her degree. And I think because of that, I just saw the power of words. I saw the power of reading. It was just a part of what was happening in our family.
Right. So your mom got her degree because you guys were reading the content material. What kind of degree did she get?
She got a theology degree. So back to that. Yeah. Wow. So we were learning about Taoism and Hinduism. And I'm asking her, I don't understand, that there were all of these spiritualities all throughout time. What is this? Why are humans so attracted to this desire to have something to look up to? And I remember being young asking that, what is that? And then that's where the letters would come from, because it would be I don't understand this, or I don't understand that. Yeah.
Wow, that is rich.
Yeah.
So in addition to that responsibility of reading to your mom and writing for her and all of that, were there other responsibilities that you and your sister had to take on?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you imagine, your mother's blind. Our father lived in Brooklyn, so he would come down. They had such an interesting relationship. Yeah. He would come down every other weekend. Right. But he wasn't really there, so we did what we had to do. My mother had us driving. At least me, I had to drive at I think 13, 14. I was driving. Wow. Yeah, and it was the opposite. Other kids be like, "Oh, I stole my mom's car." No, I don't want to steal my mom's car. She's making me go to the grocery store. She's making us. And then also when your mother is handicapped, when there's a disability like that, the village really does step in. You really are being raised by a lot of people. So there was a Thai restaurant up the street, and that lady who ran that Thai restaurant would make us food to take back to the house, or like it just became, we were community children for sure.
That's amazing. The village is mad important.
Yeah.
And, nowadays I feel like that village isn't the same as it was years ago.
Yeah.
But speaking of villages, you've created a village of your own. So the
And maybe
first
from
time,
that, maybe because I was raised that way.
how about that?
Yeah.
So the first time I really started hearing about Jeannine Cook, I was hearing about this bookstore in Philly, Harriet Books, right? Or Harriet's bookstore, right? And I just kept seeing this Harriet's, and it just has become this renowned bookstore.
That's so amazing. Some people say it.
What was the
wow.
impetus for starting Harriet's? And talk a little bit about Harriet's and what it is and what it represents.
Yeah, so Harriet's Bookshop, because I believe the bookshop, but Harriet's Bookshop is named for historic heroine Harriet Tubman.
Right.
And, so back to these conversations about living in multiple worlds in this way. This is just my wild imagination, but I always thought I could have conversations with Harriet Tubman.
Right.
And because she was tough, when I was little, there wasn't that many women that you would see in books and, in films like that were like strong, who the narrative was, I'm handling this. I got this. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Like, I'm gonna take care of myself and my people. Like, there were not many people. And still now, there aren't many examples given of people like that. And so I've been in conversation with her since I was young, where I would be like, oh, look at what she did. Like, she would just I was telling you earlier how she was a woman who was a master of disguise. And they said that she would show up places in different outfits and you wouldn't even know that was Harriet. And that she would, that's how she ended up getting her land, because she was bidding on at an auction, but people didn't know who she was. They thought it was some guy in the back, but really it was this woman who was like this 5-foot woman who was also like going back and forth, getting folks out of enslavement, So just her spirit is the spirit that I'm like, if there was any spirit that we could have and be embodied in our city, it's that spirit that we need, right? It's a spirit that's not just, yes, okay, I'm gonna take care of myself, and because there's that individualism that is very strong in our society. But somebody who's like, I'm gonna take care of me and my people, and I'm gonna do that creatively, strategically, right? So she's also one of the only people who we would learn about who wasn't killed. Right? We would learn about our heroes, but they would always get killed.
Exactly.
They would always get killed.
Yeah.
Harriet lives into her 90s. And she's just a strategic woman, entrepreneur. Most people don't know that about her, right? That she had business after brick making and, logging. And like she was teaching people when they would get out of enslavement, she would teach them how to start their own laundry businesses so that they could be independent. So this is somebody who's thinking this way that long ago, who never really learned how to formally read or write, right? But it was just, she had that spirit. She embodied that spirit. And I think it's a spirit that I hope that I get to embody more of. And that I get to spread as much as possible.
Yeah. So speaking of entrepreneurship, right? So like I said, I teach a music business class and I enjoy it because I personally didn't have the mentors and coaches coming up. So I made a lot of mistakes, right, as we all do. And I wrestle with myself sometimes because I know that you can teach a person the things. You can say, well, here's the tools and these are the things you need to do. But being an entrepreneur is a little bit deeper. Right?
Yeah.
Because there is something inside.
It's a calling, yeah.
You feel me?
Sure.
And so I wrestle sometimes, can entrepreneurship be taught or is it something you're born with? Obviously, you're an entrepreneur.
Good question, yeah.
Now, do you think it's something you can be taught?
I think it's something people can practice. I think that the engine, the thing that thing that keeps you going and going and going, I don't think that can be taught. I think that that's just in there, right? Like, it's so Octavia Butler calls it like the positive obsession, right? Where it's the thing that keeps you do that thing regardless of what's going on around you. You do that thing regardless of what people tell you to do. You do that thing because it's your engine. And I think that, for me, it doesn't matter if no one has to tell me to do entrepreneurship,
Right.
Like I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, all we gotta do is, what if we, that's just how my brain works.
Absolutely. And even if we're not making any money.
Yeah.
And even if we don't know what to do,
Yeah,
or
but
what
we will
we're
make money.
doing, we will make money.
We're gonna make money. Yeah,
We'll find a way.
Yeah, I mean, in college, right? I get to University of the Arts at 17.
Nice.
I started a club called Positive Minds. Again, entrepreneurship club. Starting a club was still I didn't know that back then. I didn't know that's what you called it. The university didn't understand my club idea. And they were like, no, we're not going to provide. They were giving like a stipend to all the other clubs. I didn't get one. And so I told my friends, I was like, we don't need their stipend. We're going to make our own money. And so we would sell. I seen people have like bake sales and stuff out front. I was like, okay, well, if they could do bake sales, that means we could sell things.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, here you got a school full of artists.
Yeah.
We got plenty of stuff to sell. And the students would donate stuff to put on the table. And I was selling books then, right? Because that was like our main thing. And then like incense and soap or whatever I could get my hands on.
Right.
But yeah, like that's just in you. Cause it was like, we would do dinners. It's like, you can't tell us what to do. You can't tell me I can't do this. Like that's a thing that's just in there. That's been there.
Yeah. So at UArts, you were selling books.
Yes. Shouts to UArts. Cause I got this hat on for them, they just gave me an award, a service award. So that's why I have the hat on. So
congratulations.
Last week I got this service award. And it's interesting. It's interesting because I had to fight like hell back in my day when I first got there to like keep saying, hey, this school's not in the community. This school is not doing, we have all this equipment. We have all of these resources. Like, why are we just like, keeping it, couched? And I would go on Fridays, me and my friends, I would just get everybody, I'm like, we're going to check out as much equipment as we're allowed to check out.
Right.
And then we would take the equipment into the neighborhood because I didn't live on campus. I lived in South Philly. And I was like, and we're going to teach as many people as want to learn how to use this equipment. And then we'll make videos, we'll make photos, my whole thing has always been storytelling. It doesn't matter the tool.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So as an entrepreneur, right, especially in the early days of Harriet's bookshop, what are some lessons that you've learned? Maybe some hard lessons. You know what I mean? Trying to get this business off the ground, trying to make money. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I didn't understand any of the paperwork stuff. Like, so in terms of like, oh, you're supposed to have a certain kind of permit to operate in this building.
Right.
I didn't know that. So they 2 years in, they were like, Jeannine, do you have this or that? And I was just like, oh, I didn't know about that.
Yep.
And then we started, if you know, that we opened 6 weeks before the pandemic.
I heard.
So that was also a whole like upset. I mean, if you could imagine, 6 weeks. So we had this amazing opening. All these people came. It was ridiculously overpacked. We sold out everything. We had already sold out the bookshop twice before we opened because people were like, just come through. I was just like, what is this place? I don't know. I didn't even recognize that it was going to be the way that it has been. And then, then you get an email from the mayor that says you have to shut your doors immediately. Yeah. And it's just like, oh.
Yes.
Now you won't find out what you made of. Yeah. And so, after I got myself up off the floor, because I did cry. I do cry. I do like sit there staring at the wall sometimes. I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? But I think the other piece, the Harriet piece that I attributed to her spirit is like, yeah, but come on. She had dogs on her back.
How about that?
She had a bounty on her head. Like somebody wanted her dead, So Jeannine, you don't have those, issues, right? And so with that in mind, there's something that can be done.
See, so like you say, the paperwork, getting everything right in the city.
Yeah, all of those pieces was just like, and they're vital, know, it's the difference between, because once COVID hit and it was time for me to apply for things, it was like, oh, but do you have this? And what's your this number? And where's your that piece of paperwork? And it was like, oh.
See?
Yeah.
How about things like accounting?
Oh, yeah.
Marketing? Were those things that came easy to you?
I was hot. So I knew people from like walks of life. So that's been always, I have a lot of relationship capital, which I think is really, really, really important. It's like how you treat people and making sure that folks know what you're up to. I think sometimes people are like, some entrepreneurs get really scared about sharing their ideas.
Yes.
Or like what they're working on. I don't have that. I'm like, so Samori, here's what I got going on.
Right.
you know anybody who do this? You know anybody who do that?
Right.
You know, I remember, so I went to dinner with Sarah Lomax-Reese from WRD,
Yeah.
and I was just like, Miss Sarah, she don't like my call, Miss Sarah, sorry, Miss Sarah. I was like, Sarah, I'm going to France. I need to know whoever I could find over there who can help me build this bookshop that we're going to build over there. So that's Josephine's bookshop.
Yes.
And she was just like, oh, I know somebody. And that's, I mean, of course, because if you know, close mouth, you know.
Right.
So,
Don't get fed. And I think,
so I asked. I definitely asked.
and that's a mad important point, because so many entrepreneurs, including me for years, are sitting here as solopreneurs, trying to figure it out, sitting back like, yo, I need a team. And yo, maybe I can't afford to hire people. You said relationship capital.
Oh, yeah. More
That's
than
a
anything
powerful
else.
thing.
More than anything else, because it's been like, well, so-and-so knows so-and-so, that village, back to that, you know, and leveraging the village so that you're not feeling alone.
Yeah. But see, here's the other thing. So often when I hear small business owners or entrepreneurs, especially in the creative space, trying to progress, they always talk about crabs in the barrel. They always talk about, oh, people won't help, people won't support.
Yeah.
That hasn't been your experience, obviously.
I mean, I think it's a mentality, right?
Yeah.
And so I see, like I told you, I write the story. I'm the narrator of this particular story. And so the way that I want to tell the story is such that I want to be supported. And so I create a story of support. I want to be, you know, I want to support others. You know, I'm deciding.
Yes.
It's not, life is not just happening to me, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So Harriet is just, a phenom. You know, it's just a phenom.
It's
amazing.
interesting that it's happening like this. It really is.
Like you said, at your grand opening, you had just tons of people.
Yeah.
Then you get this opportunity. Will Smith
Yeah.
does his
Even
book.
before Will,
Even before-
Oprah and her team reached out. Before, and it was Oprah's team and MSNBC. So they shut it down.
Yeah.
So I allowed myself to be shut down for probably like a week. And I was just like, I can't be shut down. You know, that's just like, again, right in my story, I was like, I can't be shut down. So what's the alternative? We started something called Essentials for Essentials, where you could purchase a book for an essential worker.
Okay.
And we launched it with, I think, like 50 books the first time around. We sold out in an hour. And I was like, oh, so people appreciate this idea of that and then they would write prescriptions for the doctors and the nurses. It was cute. It was fun. It was engaging, and it gave people something to do at the height of COVID. The other thing that we did was, again, like, you know, Octavia Butler's Positive Obsession. I would build the bookshop outside. So I would take all the furniture, shelves. I ain't had nothing else to do. I had nothing else to do anyway. So I would build it outside on the corner. I'd go back inside. So I was like, well, technically the store is closed. Like the doors of the store are closed, like they said. And everything was grab and go honor system. So it was just like, send us a Cash App or a Venmo for whatever book you decide that you want to grab. I can't come outside at the time, you know, that was like, you know, but it's available. And here you have this open air marketplace, so it's safe. And it worked.
So you set up an open air bookstore.
And that got to Oprah. Somebody sent that to Oprah.
Yeah.
And Oprah's team reached out to me about that and shared about it. MSNBC heard about that. And then they wanted to do a 6-part series on like small businesses, like doing creative things during the pandemic.
Yeah. And that is creative. And that's, again, being that entrepreneur, you're solving problems.
Yeah,
You're figuring out, how am I going to make this work either way,
exactly.
no matter what's happening.
Exactly.
So with this open air bookstore, people would just come by. You would tell them, hey, this is our Cash App.
Yeah.
We trust you.
Yeah.
Take your books and pens.
Yeah. Village. Yeah. So trust is a huge thing, and I think that people who don't have it are missing out on something big. It's
Yeah.
trust. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks don't have that feeling. Like, oh, I can't. Like, I mean, what else? I'm like, what do we have to lose at this point? It's like,
How about that?
Like, the whole world was like on fire, you know. So it was just like, well, we might as well go out with, you know, doing what we love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And we did. Yeah.
And books for essential workers. So you took advantage of the moment.
Yeah.
And you know, at that moment, essential workers were, you know, they had their lives on the line. They were on the front lines of this whole COVID epidemic.
And data said that books and people should know this, that books and reading in general have the same effect on our brains as meditation and as prayer. Like the same areas of our brain are always activated in reading, meditation, and prayer. And so whether you're doing any of those acts, it's actually helping to have a calming effect in the body, which is a healing effect on the body. Like that's what the data says. And so that's what we
Yeah, and I love that because so many folks nowadays are getting away from reading.
Yeah.
You know, we're on social media.
Yep.
We're listening to audiobooks, and audiobooks are great. We record a lot of them, so they have
and I love an audiobook.
Yeah.
Like, I don't diss audiobooks at all.
Right.
I'll read both at the same time. I love to hear. You love to hear Maya Angelou's voice reading. I know why Kate Bird sings. You can't not listen to her sing, read those words. But it's also amazing to look at the words and to see what she's saying. I mean, for me at least.
I started to do that this year.
Yeah.
Where I'll buy the audiobook and the book.
Yeah.
And I'll listen.
That's how I do it.
started to do that, and I found out that helps to retain that information a lot more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's an assault on our ability to focus. There's an assault on it.
100%.
And I don't think that that's unintentional, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can't focus, then you can't really create. You can't really, you can't be critical. You can't, there are all these ways in which not being able to focus actually is to somebody else's benefit.
Right.
And you can't read. If you can't read, we're from a people in this country who were denied the right to read to the point where you could be lynched or killed for being caught with a single book.
How about that?
A single book. And if folks taught you how to read, right? If a person who didn't look like you taught you how to read, they could also catch the same punishment. So that's how much folks knew that reading would have an extreme effect on our understanding about freedom.
Right.
And so, of course, they did, there's an assault on that. Readership is down across the country, but not every country.
Okay.
Right. Here.
Here for sure.
But not every country. Other folks is reading. Of course they are.
Because over here, it's a battle for attention. And a lot of that is the social media. It's just the quick hits of dopamine.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Keep you like an addict, keep you like,
That's what it is.
and you're anxious and, and you don't even know why. Yeah.
For real. So you had these just genius ideas in terms of the open air market and what this.
Some people might call them crazy.
Jesus and crazy are somewhere along they're kind of close on the same spectrum. I'm not calling it. But so you had this opportunity. You had this opportunity, and it led to some incredible press. Oprah is like the mountaintop press in MSNBC. And then at some point, Will Smith launches his book and does a book signing.
Yep.
At Harriet. How did that come about?
That's so funny. They called me, and they were like, hey, Will has a book coming out. First they tell you like, oh, there's a celebrity who's interested in working with you. And I'm like, listen, I don't like that game. Like, just tell me what we're doing, tell me what we're working with so we can plan accordingly. And, every celebrity is not somebody I want to work with. It's like just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean that you're a good partner. And so they were like, it's Will Smith and he's from Philly and da-da-da-da. I was like, send me the book. Like, I was still like, let's work it out. Yeah. And it was a cool opportunity for sure. It was huge. We redid the entire bookshop, for that, which we do, we change the bookshop often. Like that's a part of the bookshop's ethos is that it's a new bookshop when you come.
Right.
But we did an entire redo. We covered everything from top to bottom. Every fixture was turned white, and we created something called the blank canvas, which is a theme inside of his book anyway. So, and then we pulled materials from the book and had them placed in the bookshop. So, like the brick from the book where he talks about like his father teaching him how to build a wall brick by brick. We had the brick in the bookshop. Or, so we just were very intentional about bringing the book to life in the space.
Right.
And then we did this thing outside again because I was like, our shop isn't huge. It's pretty small. So we threw a kind of like a hip hop party outside. So we had all women. So we had like a woman DJ, a woman graffiti artist, a woman dancer, a woman, so we kind of wanted to cover all the elements of hip hop outside. Because then it got, it was hundreds of people out there.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pivot, but before I do, there's folks who will want to visit Harriet's, and maybe folks who aren't in the Philly area. Where is Harriet located exactly?
Yeah.
And if they're not in Philly, how can they purchase from you?
So Harriet's is in Fishtown, 258 East Girard Avenue, 19125. And then there's harrietsbookshop.com. And then there's Harriet's, and then after Harriet's, we opened Ida's. So there's Ida's Bookshop if you're in Jersey. There's Josephine's Bookshop if you're in Paris. We're like in negotiations about doing something in New York dedicated to Shirley Chisholm. So we shall see.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to Josephine's because that was my grandmother's name, my late grandmother's name, and we'll get there in 1 second. All right, so we're gonna pivot to what you're doing from a cooking perspective, right? And you're doing some cooking in the bookshop.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so my name is Jeannine Cook. And so I always thought it would be fun to have a cooking show where folks teach me a recipe from their cookbook, and then I sell that book in the shop. And so they, I cooked with Evelyn Braxton, Tony Braxton's mom.
Really?
Yeah, she taught me how to do rice pudding. Nikki Giovanni taught me how to do fried chicken.
Wow.
Yeah, like very interesting intersection. Marcus Sanderson taught me how to do, he was the one who has Red Rooster up in New York. He taught me how to do plantains.
Really?
Yeah, so they all different folks teach me different things. Yeah.
See, I mean, that's unique. That's and just all these different projects.
Yeah.
And then of course, Josephine's in Paris. That's major. Now, of course, you have Ida's in New Jersey.
Yeah.
That in and of itself, starting another bookshop.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I said my bookshop wanted a sister.
How about that? I love that. And so then you go to Paris for Josephine. Now, I'm going to assume, I don't know this or not, that that's named after Josephine Baker.
Absolutely.
Okay, and also, like I said, my late grandmother, Josephine.
Yes, and her too.
Appreciate that. That's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
So, how did that come about?
Yeah. So remember when the beginning I told you about being led by the Spirit?
Yes.
Which is sometimes not an easy thing to do because sometimes you'd be like, well, this is something I like to always bring up because it happens to the best of us where you get an inkling in your spirit, like, oh, I want to do that thing. And then it'd be like, but I don't know how to do that thing. Like that's a thing that feels way too big for somebody like me to do.
Right.
I don't speak French. I'm not, I don't have, I was like, what? Why would I want to do a bookshop in Paris? Like that seems like too much. But it's not. And I said something that I like to repeat to myself is like, if it came to you, it wants to come through you, and so if it's sitting with you, like the means will appear. You just kind of like keep working through it, right? And so I had got invited to, actually James Baldwin took me to Paris. And I got invited to go to an institute where we were learning about James Baldwin from like scholars all over the world, which was like wild. Folks in Korea are teaching James Baldwin at all girls schools, like folks all over the world, they're teaching Baldwin. I wonder if Baldwin would ever thought that in his time that he would be the icon that he is to the society that we live in.
Right.
But so I go to the Baldwin Institute, and then while I was there, this Josephine's thing sat in my spirit, and I was just like, oh God, like, how am I going to do this? This is very, very difficult. I'm not from here.
Yeah.
France is bureaucratic. It's a whole bunch of other things. But I just kept, knocking. So I was like, I got to start, anybody? What about this? And then like slowly doors were opening. I was meeting with this one woman who has a bookshop, and I thought she has an Anglophone bookshop, so English speaking. And so I was like, oh, maybe we should partner. But I also, if you see our shops, they are not traditional bookshops. They're very, very, like, we take you inside of a space, inside of a story. Inside. So with Josephine's, I knew I wanted to recreate her bedroom as a bookshop. And so the woman was just like, well, you can't do that up in here. And I was just like, yeah, I know. And so she was like, but my neighbor might. And then she walked over. Immediately, the neighbor said yes. And so then we had a space. So then it was just like, so that's kind of just, I do my part. And then I believe that the great mothers do their part. And doors just kind of open.
Yeah.
And so Josephine's happened. We did Bastille Day, which is a huge holiday in Paris, in France.
Right.
Again, a holiday that represents freedom. So these women all kind of thematically have the same energy about freedom, the same commitment. It was wild. It was like Harriet's. All these people came, and like I was just like, this is wild that we're in another country. And yeah, so and then it was a Philly thing. So like Denise King, who you must know, I think she's Philly.
Absolutely.
She curated all the music, so there was like music every night.
Wow. Yeah, shout out to Denise.
Okay.
Yes.
And then one night I was like, Miss Denise, could we do a gospel night instead of a jazz night? Could we do a gospel night? Would you sing gospel all night? And could we have like fried chicken and cornbread? And when I tell you, she brought that place down.
No, she did.
And people was coming in off the street. The French people was like, what is this? What is this? And I was just like, I don't know what you call it, but y'all gotta get in there and get you some.
See?
And it was just that kind of, space.
Yeah. You know, and so as entrepreneurs, as small business owners, so often we have limiting beliefs, right? Our mindsets, we have a scarcity mindset. We have limiting beliefs. So the idea of, I'm going to go do something in Paris, to most people, even most entrepreneurs and small business owners, it's like going to the moon. It's just far-fetched. The fact that you did that is amazing. It shows that, you know, you're human. So at some level, we all have some limiting beliefs, but you have allowed your mind to be open, right? And you have a lot of courage. Another thing entrepreneurs have is we take risks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was a bold risk.
Okay. And I think because even with Harriet, it's like I tell people, like especially when I teach classes, I do like this. And I'm like, those are my horse blinders. Right? Like, there's just like, I don't see anything happening to the left or the right of me. I'm just right here focused on what the goal, the mission is.
That's it.
And, you know, like somebody would call me and be like, yo, girl, did you hear what happened? I was like, yo, I got my horse blinders. So like, I can't do it right now. I'm in my zone. And people know what I mean. Like the people who know me, they know what I mean when I say I got my, if I do this to people, they be like, oh, okay, I'm not there.
See?
You know? And so, yeah, I gotta listen to the internal thing
That's right.
as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. So we're going to get ready to put a button on this. But before we do, I like to do a small segment with all of my guests. Right? Because I work with creative entrepreneurs. I work with entrepreneurs.
I'm like, do I got to rap?
Maybe. You never know.
Beer.
Got some bars?
You really gotta have something.
So I call it the marketing roundtable.
Okay.
Or the marketing roundup, right? Okay. And I just want to know, what have you done from a marketing standpoint? Because when a lot of people come to me and they say, I want to start this business, or I've been running my business and I'm not getting any traction, I know that the key is marketing. You know, I already know you have been really blessed with publicity. Some really great publicity.
And I've never sent out a press release, by the way.
Are you serious?
Never in my life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But are there any other kind of marketing techniques or tools that you're doing to grow your brand?
Yeah, I would say, that's why I say that about the press release, so folks can hear that, is that I think sometimes marketing folk or publicists will tell you like this very formulaic way to get things done.
Yeah.
And it's not. I think that more importantly is that you figure out like what is the true connection between what it is that you're doing and the humanity or the people you want to serve. And if you think of it as real service to people, and it's like I'm doing my best to meet a need, then it's a little different than like I'm trying to use people to buy my product, right? Or people to buy my service. I'm trying to get this money. You know what I mean? Like there's a very different come from when you're seeing yourself as a servant.
That's right.
So that's one.
And would you say that because you've seen yourself as a service, it's brought that goodwill onto you, and that's how a lot of the publicity has come about? Or
I mean, I think one is that I'm okay with not fitting in. I'm okay with doing things differently. I prefer to. Like, if I've seen it done, I prefer not to do the thing that I've seen other people do.
Right.
I see sometimes folks are kind of like, oh, that looked like that worked for someone, so I'm going to do that too. That's boring to me. Like, I'm very interested in like, well, how do we innovate? How do we invent? How do we, and so I think that's a big part of it. And so I'm trying to think, like, for instance, I was in a meeting with these TV producers about like a show idea of like, well, so what if there was a bookshop a show that was kind of based on what we do at the bookshop, where we come in and we like look at your space, like kind of like what we did downstairs even. And I was like, well, why don't we put this in here? And we don't, like, let's think about the library differently. Let's bring it alive.
Right.
So what if there was a remodel show, but for book spaces? And people were like, So I was just like, yeah. And when we do the big reveal, I'm a character from that space, right? So if I was to redo the library at Little Drummer Boy and we were, we turned it into this beautiful, 70s disco. I don't know. I'm just making shit stuff up right now, but you get what I'm saying. And then on a reveal, I would actually be from the 70s, so but that's how the bookshops are, right? When you can come in there, if we open the book, now you're in that era. So it's like creating like real opportunity for people, doing something that people have never done before so that they can have experiences that they couldn't have anywhere else. And I think sometimes people don't realize that what they're doing is really special.
Right.
And that you get to lean into that uniqueness as much as possible. And that's what people connect to, is like the real voice, right? And I'm sure it's the same thing in music, right? It's like if you try to sound like so-and-so, what's the point? We might as well listen to so-and-so, right?
Yeah.
But if you have your own sound, which is what I think we're looking for, we're looking for you to connect with your own, voice. People connect to the authenticity.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So any paid ads, any other type of marketing?
For the longest, social media wouldn't let me, I don't know why, they wouldn't let me do paid ads. So I haven't.
Wow.
I can't use that feature on my Instagram.
And I love that because, when I talk to different people do it so many different ways. And you're doing it very organically.
Yeah.
And I see people use organic YouTube, organic Instagram.
Yeah.
I see the paid ads. I see some other methods. So that's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Harriet's, the work that we've done is very much word of mouth.
Yes.
And it's very, like I said, back to relationship capital, it's human centered, right? And so that's people saying, well, I went to this space and I had this feeling. I want you to feel it too.
Right.
And I appreciate that.
All right. Well, Queen Jeannine, it is
Thank you so much.
Quite a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to redesigning the LDB library.
Yes, I'm 100% in now.
and we got it on camera.
Yeah, I'm 100% in. I have you on my show.
I need
We'll
that.
switch roles.
Yes, I need that. So, it's Samori. I appreciate you guys for just tuning in today, having this incredible discussion with an entrepreneur who is just doing amazing things. Today's episode was brought to you by our sponsors, Little Drummer Boy Recordings. Who visualized you? Right now, I'm looking through the eye of the camera and I'm asking myself, who visualized you? They did. Fire.ai for all your marketing and automation needs, and Home Studio Tutor, online audio engineering and music production training. So we're going to see you next time, but keep believing. If you're running your business, if you're thinking about running your business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're 9 to 5 right now, you can do it. Keep believing, write it down, and take it to the stars and beyond. Peace.